All right, welcome everyone. This week I am speaking with Shawn Magee, owner of SMD Racing and Shawn Magee Designs. Shawn, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Brandon. Thank you for having me on.
I'm really excited to have you on. We've gotten to have a couple of drivers, but the past 2 weeks we've been able to talk to Dick Clavelo from GMS, and even for you, or this week with you. And I just think it's really cool getting to have these perspectives of the sport because I think a lot of times people focus on the drivers or the owners, and those are the rock stars of the sport. But when you look at the pit crew members or even the designers, I was telling Dick last week that when I think of Jeff Gordon, there's probably just as many people that the rainbow car comes to mind or the flames as they do, Jeff Gordon himself. So I think it's cool getting the perspective of the guys behind the scenes that are putting together these logos or schemes or whatever. So my first question for you is your portfolio. It's very broad and it ranges from not only NASCAR but also churches, concerts, businesses that have nothing to do with NASCAR. How did you first get into design?
Well, I've been in the design industry for quite a few years now, and I've always done freelance design outside of my normal agency job where I'm an art director at a packaging design firm.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll see in my portfolio that I'll have different things, church logos, packaging for, pet supply companies, all kinds of stuff in my portfolio. And that's just from years of being in the design field and having a freelance identity that kind of brings a wide range of different clients in. So I get to touch a lot of cool things outside of NASCAR. The recent, couple years, my focus has been NASCAR. That's what's kept me busy on the freelance side. So that's where a lot of this focus has kind of shifted down to. And you'll see a lot of things that are NASCAR focused in my portfolio.
Mm-hmm. So in previous interviews, you talked about how growing up you weren't the biggest NASCAR fan, and how it design came first for you. When exactly did your love for design and I guess your either interest or your love in NASCAR, when did that spark and you started combining the two?
Yeah, it's funny because I was growing up. I wasn't a huge NASCAR fan. I appreciated the paint schemes, and I was always, as a little kid, drawing paint schemes on boxes and treating them like they were my race cars. So I loved that aspect of NASCAR. But as a kid, we grew up in a house where we didn't have a ton of money. We had what we needed, and we only had one television. And my dad was a NASCAR fan and would watch NASCAR, and he would always end up sleeping through most of the race. And I never knew how he did it, but he always knew what was going on. And I just wanted to play video games, and so I had to wait till he was done with the race. So it wasn't until later in life that I actually appreciated what was going on in the race outside of just the aesthetics of how the cars looked.
Mm-hmm.
And then my wife and I ended up moving to the Carolinas in 2005, shortly after we got married. And as you know, that's the NASCAR hub,
Yeah.
right there in central North Carolina around Charlotte. And I realized that, hey, this is a big deal, and there's no other sport that supports graphics like NASCAR. I mean, the paint schemes and the sponsorships drive the funding that allow these teams to operate. It goes hand in hand. So I just, I had a renewed love for the sport at that point, and decided in 2008 that I wanted to really make a conscious effort to try to get into the sport. Because I saw the potential there, and I have the love for design and the interest in the sport, and I just wanted to set some personal goals for myself. And so 2008 is when I set the personal goal for me to design a paint scheme in the Cup Series. So that was my ultimate goal, and that came true recently in 2000. I've been in the Truck Series for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but in the Cup Series. 2018 was really the year that a lot of these came true. In 2019 as well.
Yeah. So speaking of 2019, the scheme you're probably most known for is the Keen Parts Scooby Doo car, which was the 2019 paint scheme of the year. So congrats on that. Tell us a little bit about working with a sponsor who is already known for having great paint schemes. So there's already the expectations with Keen Parts, both their throwbacks as well as I know they had done the Snoopy car at that point, as well as working with the folks at Warner and Scooby Doo. And I also, did you expect it to be as big of a hit as it was?
Yeah, that's a great question. The Scooby Doo car is definitely a big hit. I know that there's a lot of people out there that love Scooby Doo. They're going to be attracted to the paint scheme, just for the content. So I knew there was the potential for it. The folks over at Keen Parts, they do a good job of, being creative, allowing the designers to be creative and come up with, eye-catching paint schemes that really are going to promote their brand and get people's attention. So that's exactly what the Scooby Doo car did. The guys at Go Fast already had a connection through prior dealings with Warner Media, so we were able to kind of piggyback on that connection and get everything approved through licensing, through Lionel and everything like that. So it was a really fun project, and it's one of my kids' favorite paint schemes out of the ones that are on my in my die-cast collection here at my house.
That's awesome. Out of the trophies, schemes, logos, is there anything that stands out as a design you're most proud of? I guess in the NASCAR realm, or unless there's something non NASCAR that you've just really loved.
Yeah, that's a really tough question because there've been a lot of cool projects I've been able to be a part of, a lot of cool paint schemes that I've been blessed to be asked to do throughout the years. The one that really sticks out as being unique and special to me is the opportunity I had to design the qualifying pole trophy for Talladega through Freight Auctions. So Marcus Barella, the owner of Freight Auctions, came to me one day and was like, "Can you design me a trophy?" And I was like, "Okay." I didn't know really what it was for, and then he told me a little bit more about details. He's like, "I'm sponsoring the pole. I'm the pole sponsor at Talladega in April, and I need a trophy design." And I was like, "Yes, sir. Yes." I'd never designed a trophy to that point, but I was like, "Okay." So I did some research on what other trophies have been produced in the sport, and worked with a trophy producer just to get the specs. And then I designed a few options and sent over to Marcus to choose from, and he selected one and loved it. And it's that trophy was given to Kevin Harvick for winning the pole at Talladega in 2018. So it was really cool to see. I have the photo up here at my office of Kevin Harvick in victory lane there holding the pole trophy that I designed. And I was just standing. I was actually in that photo off to the left. I wasn't in the photo, but when he was given the trophy. So it was just a really cool experience. And they actually have a duplicate trophy, the exact trophy. They had 3 of them made, one for Kevin, one for Marcus to have in their office, and then they also had one for me made as well. So it's sitting in my office. It's just a really cool piece, to remember the occasion. And it was a cool project, and I was glad that Marcus asked me to do it. Just very fortunate.
That's really cool. That's something that I worry about a lot of younger fans is I wonder if they have that appreciation for the trophies and all. Because I know whenever we go visit the race shops up in North Carolina, when I was younger and even now, I love going to, Hendrick, and they have all these trophies on display. Same way with like Stuart Haas, and it's cool getting to see how, you don't just have the grandfather clocks at Martinsville, but you have all these cool race trophies, but also the trophies like the pole days and all. So it's cool to hear, as a designer taking time to create that, but also a place like Freight Auctions taking the time to create something instead of just slap our logo on a generic design or whatever.
Yeah, everything's very intentional in the sport. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't realize or even take the time to think through. One of the things being like the logo for the qualifying event was also on the infield painted. It was about 2,000 square feet, so it's the size of most people's houses,
Mm-hmm.
and it was painted on the infield and. As part of the marketing deal for Talladega, they actually recorded the guys doing it in like a time lapse type feature, and it's really cool to watch. They
Mm-hmm.
kind of lay it out in the grass, and then they spray certain areas, and they just kind of work at it, and then before you know it, you have this giant logo that's created in the infield, and it's just completely just painted on the grass on the infield of Talladega.
Wow. So during my one of my recent interviews with Dick Clavelo of GMS, we spoke about working with sponsors, and during his time at BK Racing, there were a ton of sponsors he was working with. But for you, you've done a lot of work with a single partner, and that being freight auctions. What is it like being on the other side, getting to work with a partner over and over again? Is it easier? Is it harder? What does it look like when you are getting to work with that single partner repeatedly?
Yeah, it's anytime you have the opportunity to work directly with a sponsor is always, it's always a nice thing to do. Just because they are the end all when it comes to the approval process. So the sponsor drives the look and everything. So when you work with a team, you work through a rep on the team who is dealing ultimately with the sponsor. But when you're dealing with the sponsor, you're working directly with the person who's making the final decision. So it's nice from a design aspect. I'm able to go directly to Marcus at Freight Auctions and say, all right, based on our conversations, here is what I'm recommending from a design standpoint, and just kind of give him options to choose from, or say, yeah, okay, let's do this or let's do that, and just pick his brain directly. And then, I'll get to work on, creating all the graphics and the different marketing things that are involved with that. And then that's presented to the team. And then the team takes that and says, okay, well, we need to change this per, agreements that we have put in place. We have to do this or this. And then once the team is okay with what is presented, then it gets sent to NASCAR for approval. If it's a paint scheme related thing, or if it's going to be, some sort of activation or something that's going to be beyond just your pit crew shirts or fan
Mm-hmm.
giveaways.
Wow. So I guess also building off of that, like you had talked about the crew shirts and all, is that something that as a designer if you're working with Freight Auctions to sponsoring David Reagan, is it you going through and designing the crew shirts as well, or is that just the team saying, well, we'll just slap on the Freight Auctions logo here and we'll make it a black shirt?
Yeah, that's a great question. All the teams operate differently. I work primarily with a handful of teams directly.
Mm-hmm.
This year, MBM is one team that I've started working with a lot. And I've worked with Front Row Motorsports in the past through the Freight Auctions connection. Also with Go Fast and Rick Ware Racing last year. And they all operate differently. They all have vendors that supply them with pit crew shirts,
Mm-hmm.
and those vendors oftentimes have designers on staff that'll say, all right, well, if they don't have a pre-existing design that's designed by the sponsor, they'll go and have these shirts produced by their team, and they'll kind of design something and then present back to the team, and then the team takes it to the sponsor and says, well, here's what we have available for a pit crew shirt, and it kind of goes through the process that way. With Freight Auctions, if there's a fire suit that needs designed, we just did one for Michael McDowell this past year. I handled the design of the actual fire suit directly with Freight Auctions, and then it was submitted to Front Row, which then was sent to Simpson or whoever the fire suit
Mm-hmm.
maker is, the supplier, the vendor at that time. So it just kind of works. Either way, somebody's laying this out and designing it and presenting to the sponsor for a final approval.
Man, it goes back to, like you said earlier, just all the stuff that happens behind the scenes, because like I said, as a fan, in my mind, I've always thought about the schemes, but when I think of crew shirts or the fire suits, I sit there and think, well, it's easy because you make it their color, you slap their logo on, but I never thought about you need that intentional too, because if you're winning, that's what people are seeing, when you're being interviewed or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And the freight auctions fire suit definitely had got its fair share of exposure last year with the McDowell and Suarez
Oh
kind of
yeah.
dust up. It's kind of unfortunate the way it happened, how we got on television that way. But it is there. It's a piece of advertising, and that was all over the place with the freight auctions brand. Again, it's not maybe something that freight auctions is going to support.
Uh-huh.
What went on, but it's still branding and it's still getting your brand out there. And there's a lot of different things behind the scenes outside of fire suits, pit crew
Mm-hmm.
shirts. There's the pit wall banners that are put up by the teams or outside the pit box. There's fan apparel. There's hero cards. There's social graphics. There's so much that's wrapped around all of these sponsorships for these different teams, and it's not like it was back in the day when a particular team ran one sponsor,
Mm-hmm.
for, more than 10 races. It pretty much changes every week. So anytime the scheme changes, then all the graphics change as well. So, it's very busy, in the off season, getting all these things lined up. And then once we go back to racing, it's just everyone involved with the team is just going a million miles an hour to try to keep up from week to week from all the different changes.
Wow. Well, I thank you for taking some time out to do this interview today with me. For all the folks listening to this, if they want to learn more about you and your designs, where can they go to find that info?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It definitely is cool to chat with other folks in the industry. You can go to my website, ShawnMageeDesign.com, and check out a few things, on social as well. SMD Racing One, through the social channels. So, it's looking forward to 2020 and getting back to racing.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that we're going to be there sooner than later.
Well, I look forward to seeing your schemes back on the track, and be safe during all of this.
You too. Appreciate it, Brandon.
All right. Thank you.